What's going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of the Lakers Outsiders post-game show. We're talking about a Lakers playoff win on the road. First time we've been able to really ever do that because all the playoff wins last year were in the bubble. So this time the Lakers send home a Phoenix crowd very disappointed. You just hate to see something like that. But I'm your host, Gary Kester, here with you
I'm
as
used to it.
I'm your host, Gary Kester, here with you as always. And joining me as always is my good pal, Honi Ahmadian. Honi, could you just imagine being down 0-2 in a first round playoff series?
No, is that a thing that happens? Is that possible for a basketball team, a professional basketball team, to go down 0-2 in a first round series?
Especially a basketball team that plays in Los Angeles?
Yeah,
I don't
or
know.
one that's favored in the series. I don't
Huh.
think I've ever heard of anything like that
One
happening.
one that handpicked their series matchup by deliberately losing the last two games? I mean, I can't
Man,
think of something like that happening.
that would be embarrassing, wouldn't it? If you tanked out of a matchup to play the team that is now punking you on the road. Wow,
That'd be embarrassing.
I could never think of that happening. That would
Yeah.
be a cool prank. It'd be a
Yeah.
great prank if you ever did that. But
Oh man, it's all good fun. Long way to go. Long way to go. Long way. NBA comp to being down 0-2. The Clippers. There's your NBA comp. Uh, yeah, man. What a night. What a night for Lakers fans. Obviously, we're going to talk Lakers Suns game 2. Lakers win 109-102. Some big plays from the two LA superstars. Dennis Schroeder played really well in this game. We're going to talk all about it. Just a great day overall for Lakers fans. First, we got to see the Celtics get absolutely demolished, and then we saw the Lakers come through with a big win. It got very tight, and I think Hani and I lost a couple years off of our lives, but we get the win, so maybe we gained it back by doing that. I think we gained it back because we got to see an Alex Caruso dunk. I feel like every Laker fan
absolutely,
gains like 2 or 3 years on their life every time that happens. So, especially
yes.
especially a clutch one. And then the Clippers lose to the Mavs and now have to go to Dallas down 0-2. So just a great night. Just a great Tuesday night. More Tuesday nights should be like this. And yeah, life is good.
But don't be worried though. Paul George is still not concerned.
Yeah. Yeah. So. Uh,
Listen, it's not championship or bust, right? Not
that's
for the
right.
Clippers.
That's right. I mean, I'm gonna save my jokes for an official Clippers elimination, but we're gonna get some in because I mean you tempt the basketball gods, and I mean the basketball gods see everything,
It's
so
true. It's true.
don't tempt them. But yeah, let's talk about this Lakers game. Man, Lakers led throughout most of this game. The Suns came storming back in the fourth quarter, got their first lead. I think their first lead since it was like 12-11 in the first quarter. Suns really rode some momentum that they closed out the third strong, carried it over into the fourth, and made some big threes that really got them right back in the game. And then that crowd was buzzing. But the Lakers showed some championship fortitude, maintained their composure, and made some big plays down the stretch of that game to pull out a huge win and go back to LA with the split that they needed.
Yeah, it was kind of the sort of game that we were expecting to see from them after the lackluster game that they had. I thought they fixed a lot of the issues that they had in that first game. Like just off the top of my head, the transition defense that was awful, while their transition offense wasn't really getting out. They weren't getting much out of that. This game, they had a 15-4 fast break advantage. The rebounding edge this game, they had 8 offensive rebounds, and the Suns only had 4. I think in the first half they only had 1. The Suns did. So a lot of those minor things that they fixed, but the big story is obviously that LeBron James and in particular Anthony Davis actually showed up and had big games. And this was a game where they didn't get a whole lot of help. Dennis Schroeder and Andre Drummond played well, but besides them, the rest of the Lakers role players really did not contribute much offensively. But they played good enough defense again in 2 straight games of holding the Suns to a pretty low point total, and then just got enough from their stars down the stretch. And that's usually what playoff games come down to. You know, a guy like LeBron and a guy like AD should be able to carry a team in a position where it felt like they were about to blow this game and go down 0-2. It was very much coming down to that, but AD makes a couple of big defensive plays and then hits that big three. LeBron hits that crazy fadeaway, another three, and all of a sudden the Lakers go on that 7-0 run, which obviously we're just talking about the Stars having a big stretch there, but also it kind of came down to AD playing at the 5 in that moment. Vogel going to what should be the Lakers' bread and butter at the end of games is Anthony Davis playing the 5, and it paid dividends right away. They went on a 7-0 run immediately, and that was basically the end of the game.
Yeah, it was 93-92 with 3 minutes to go in the game, and the Lakers closed out really strong, with a big run to end, and did so with their defense. I thought with that, the fourth quarter, they were really struggling defensively against Phoenix. Phoenix felt like they were scoring just about every time down to start that fourth quarter, like the first half of the fourth quarter. And the Lakers they cranked it up from that in those last 3 minutes. Anthony Davis, first half was kind of tricky for him because he picked up those 2 fouls right away and kind of had to be careful. He did still stay on the court for a large portion of that first half, but you could tell there were some buckets he had to just kind of concede to Ayton around the basket just to not pick up a third foul. And that kind of limits what you can do offensively, right? Because you have to be aware of guys trying to draw charges on you and stuff like that. So I thought AD did a great job navigating this game. I think there were still some times that he settled a little too much for the jumper, but made some big jumpers in this game. Had 2 threes that he made in the second half, and one of them put the Lakers up by 6 late in the game. So yeah, big bounce back game from Anthony Davis in the fourth quarter, especially I think defensively, because he still I think had just the 2 fouls going into that stretch, or maybe it was just 3, but he was no longer in foul trouble, and I think that kind of changed his mentality and his aggressiveness defensively, and I think it took the Lakers defense to a new level that Suns team hadn't quite seen yet in that game.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's this Lakers team, even more so than last year, I feel like really has to do it on the defensive end. I just don't think they quite have the firepower to really stick with teams if it turns into a shootout, especially with their stars still sort of getting their form back after coming back from injuries. So I think last game, I think their defense was overall pretty good, but there were a lot of issues that they couldn't correct over the course of just that game. The transition defense that we talked about, there were those late switches which were either giving the Suns guards space pretty close to the basket or leading to Ayton having rebounding opportunities against the guard. That stuff didn't really happen as much. I think the Lakers still struggled at times with their pick and roll defense, and it was leading to Ayton still having another pretty good game of just kind of making himself available near the basket, and it felt like every shot that he took was basically a dunk, other than the one that AD blocked, or the one that Caruso blocked as well. But overall, a team as good as the Suns are on every possession, but overall the Lakers defense was really suffocating, and there were some possessions where you could just see them really go after these guys and hound them. I think that the play that it really kind of stuck out to me was the one where AD picked up his second foul. It was kind of a cheap foul to pick up because the Lakers as a team just had the Suns playing really clumsy on that possession. They couldn't hold on to the ball at all, and Dario Saric was the guy that ended up with it, and he was kind of dribbling across the floor and losing his handle, and all of a sudden he just kind of got tripped up, and they called the foul on AD, but it really only happened because of great defense, and it was just kind of an unlucky play that ended up with AD getting the foul. But that sort of play was really setting the tone tonight, I thought. And especially in the first half, they were able to use that sort of aggressiveness to create a lot of turnovers that the Suns don't usually give up. I think they have like 5 turnovers in the first 5 minutes, something like that. And that helps the Lakers. Like they struggle scoring in the half court right now. So if they can get those turnovers and push the pace, even if they don't get a bucket in transition on those sort of plays, it's at least leading to cross matches, and maybe AD gets a deep steal on a guy like Jay Crowder like he did early on, and just drawing a foul. It's a play that doesn't lead to points right away, but it's a valuable foul to draw on a guy that has kind of bothered him and LeBron at times this series. So those little small details, I thought the Lakers did a great job of correcting in this game, and I think that's ultimately, on top of just AD having a much better game and being aggressive and getting to the basket and drawing, I think 21 free throw attempts, which was the most by a Lakers since Kobe in 08. Other than that, which is obviously a huge thing, but those small details are what keeps the Lakers in a game long enough for AD to then be able to take over down the stretch, or LeBron to be able to take over down the stretch.
Yeah, 100%. And LeBron's shot making in this game was pretty absurd. The level of difficulty on some of the shots that he made. I mean, there were just some you couldn't play better defense on, and he just hit great shots and really bailed the Lakers out of some possessions. So the Lakers superstars definitely showed up, and I felt like LeBron almost was just kind of feeling out the game for a large portion of it. It seemed like he was almost kind of saving himself a little bit for when the Lakers really needed it the most, and came up with some really, really big shots and hit kind of the dagger three that really kind of sealed the deal, even though Devin Booker got about 38 free throws in the last minute and a half. But that's why, those are your leaders, right? AD and LeBron, you pay those guys, max contracts to not only get you there, but then, make those plays in those moments. And, a lot of times in playoff games, role players got to step up in big moments. But, I mean, your superstars are the ones that have to initiate all that. And, when it came to the clutch moments, I mean, it was mostly LeBron and AD. But, hey, the Lakers got a lot more help elsewhere outside those guys. And I don't remember if I said this in the Game 1 post-game show or not, but it just feels like this team's effort level kind of almost hinges on AD, right? When he's more engaged and he's more focused, it just seems like the team follows him. I think we saw that tonight, especially defensively. Even though I felt like this team could still actually play much better defense than what we saw. I thought there was a lot of times where they had breakdowns that led to Ayton getting a lot of shots at the rim, and Cameron Payne had a couple of straight line drives with nobody rotating over. So they still had a number of breakdowns, but overall it was obviously much better than what we saw in Game 1, where I think Phoenix probably missed a lot of very makeable looks. But even with the Lakers not really shooting that well overall in this game, I mean, shot 45%, 10 of 33 from the three-point line. So not great. They did do a much better job with their free throws, 27 of 31. They didn't leave a ton of points kind of off the board there. But the superstars showed up big when they needed it most. Anthony Davis bounces back with 34 points, 10 boards, 7 assists, and 3 blocks. Also only had the 1 turnover, which is good. LeBron with 23 points, 9 assists, 4 boards, 9 of 16 shooting, and like I said, some very timely buckets. But let's talk about 2 role players that stepped up big for the Lakers today. I mentioned Dennis Schroeder played really, really well in this game and gave the Lakers that third option on offense and really looked like that guy that we've seen at times earlier this year that could be that third guy that provides a ton of offensive support, and just was shredding the Suns for stretches, attacking the basket, and he got a couple threes to go as well. And offensively, he was really good. And shout out to Andre Drummond, man. I mean, as much as Lakers Twitter likes to go out of their way and basically, label him the scapegoat anytime they lose, even when there are certain things that aren't his fault. It's almost like that people have made up their minds not to like the guy and look for confirmation bias a lot in some of these games. Today, he was really good, man. He was really good. 15 points, 12 boards. He made an impact right away on the glass. I think he had like 5 or maybe 7 rebounds like in the first quarter.
Yeah.
Was just racking him up. But made 7 of his 11 shots. Just did his job. Did his job in this game, and did all you can really ask for, and gave the Lakers a fourth guy in double figures, especially on a night that KCP didn't have the shot going. The bench didn't provide really a ton of scoring. Marc Gasol had 6, Caruso had 4, Kuzma had 2, and Taylor Horton-Tucker had 1. I mean, that was it. So, when the Lakers needed some other guys to step up, Dennis Schroeder and Andre Drummond certainly brought it.
Yeah, absolutely. Drummond kind of strikes me as an extreme of a player that really needs an early confidence boost to really perform well. And not to say that he was bad in game 1, because I don't think he was. I think his limitations were more clear in game 1, and I think it led to other players around him playing poorly. Mm-hmm. But I don't think he had necessarily a bad game. But this game, I think he came out early. He had a nice defensive possession early where he had that steal when they were trying to lob it up to DeAndre Ayton, and then got those rebounding possessions, like you said, and then started getting some of those shots to go. One of the very clear struggles that Drummond has had all season, even before he got to the Lakers, is that he doesn't really finish around the rim very well for a big guy. I think he was sub 50% before he joined the Lakers. But today he had some great, nice touches around the basket and got a lot of those plays to go. One of the misses that he had was just a very unlucky one that rolled out.
He had a nice little running hook. It was
really Reggie nice Miller was comparing him to Kareem live on air. Even I did not feel bold enough to do that, and I did that with freaking Damian Jones earlier this year. So I mean, if he gets those sort of early confidence boosts, you can see the sort of value he can have for this team, especially considering their offense struggles. Getting those extra possessions is amazing. And today he had 5 offensive rebounds and 2 steals. So some of those offensive rebounds came on the same possession, I believe. But in a regular game, that would be 7 extra possessions. And in a playoff game, 7 possessions is very much going to be something that can change a win to a loss or vice versa. So, I thought he was huge, especially early on. And I think Frank Vogel did a good job of, 1, putting him in lineups where he could succeed, and 2, having that short leash when it felt like later in the game when he was put in a position where he wasn't performing as well, or at least the team wasn't performing well with him, that he pulled him out, put Marc Gasol in, and then put AD in. I thought he did a really good job with that. And then as far as Dennis Schroeder goes, I think once he came back in the second quarter all the way through the end of the game, I loved how he played. He was incredibly aggressive. They really needed that because, as much as we talked about LeBron having a superstar sort of game, there were very long stretches in this game where he didn't, and it was a very strange game from LeBron because his shot making was incredible, and his defense I thought was much better than in game 1, but he was not really attacking the basket after the first quarter, and they really needed that. There were some stretches where the Lakers offense was sputtering because nobody was getting into the paint, and Dennis Schroeder came along and drew some fouls. He had the play where he drove baseline and then dumped it off for AD for a dunk. Those sort of plays really, really matter, and he was sort of a calming force, which is a little bit unlike Schroeder because he's more of a chaotic sort of player, in my opinion. Is that he has extreme highs and extreme lows, but he was very stable from that second quarter onwards to me. Somebody that you could give the ball to when the offense was sputtering, and he could try to come up with something. And obviously the threes are huge too, because the Lakers right now are struggling to shoot threes. So getting a couple of catch and shoot threes from him was huge.
Yeah, and you talked about Drummond creating extra possessions with his offensive rebounds. He had 5 offensive rebounds in this game. I mean, when you look at just kind of the box score, a lot of the shooting percentages were very even. The Lakers shot 45%, Suns shot 46%. 3-pointers, both teams shot 30%. Free throws, 93% to 87%. Free throws were one free throw attempt difference in favor of the Lakers. 3-pointers, Lakers made 2 more threes. A big thing that jumps out though is those extra possessions that you create by getting offensive rebounds. Lakers had 80 shot attempts to the Suns 71. And made 3 more shot attempts overall for the game. But the turnovers, The Lakers only committed 7 turnovers in this game and forced 13 for the Suns. A lot of a good portion of those came early, but the Lakers were able to utilize those turnovers and really turn defense into offense. And this team, when they get out and run, man, on the break, especially with Anthony Davis out there, just because there's not many bigs in the league that can run with that guy. When you get LeBron and AD and then whoever out on the break, it's just a nightmare for teams to cover. But that's the thing that kind of jumps out to me, because you've highlighted it a couple times that the Suns were one of the best teams in the league at not turning the basketball over this season, and the Lakers basically turned them over twice as many times as they turned it over. I think if the Lakers are able to do that, it's going to be very difficult for Phoenix to beat them.
Yeah, and more importantly than even getting to turnovers, points off turnovers, 21 for the Lakers tonight, 5 for the Suns. So it was a factor of not only of turning the ball over, but then being able to go back and score, whether it was in transition, the 15 pass break points that we talked about, or them playing against the defense that isn't quite as set and having those mismatches that you can go at and scoring that way. And then, like I said, the transition defense as well, of making sure that the Suns weren't able to hurt them on the few turnovers that they did have. It's huge. And I think going into the series, it was on my mind a little bit because the Suns don't turn the ball over and because the Lakers love to run fast. But I didn't think it was going to matter quite as much, just because I was a little bit more confident in the superstars showing up right away. And because it took a little bit longer for that to happen, I think that now, sort of readjusting and recalibrating, I think that is a huge key for this series. I think, on any given day, if the Lakers can win that turnover battle, especially by a decent margin like they did today. And let's be clear, like 13 turnovers is not really huge in an NBA game. So it's not like they were forcing the Suns to throw the ball away over and over again. But right. In a playoff game, when the pace slows down, generally speaking, and every possession is so important because they're so limited. Even a 6 turnover difference obviously had a huge impact given the points off turnover stats that I just read off as well. So, yeah, I think that's turned into a really huge key for the Lakers getting back into the series, and hopefully it's something that they can keep stressing and keep impacting in the future games, because I think that is a very, very positive way for them to win the series.
Yeah, I mean, 7 turnovers is great, because we've seen this team go through some rough, just brutal stretches offensively this year, where they turn the ball over, they don't get shot attempts, or if they do, they get bad shots. And I think 2 of them were just them basically being too unselfish and passing up some looks and getting 2 shot clock violations in the second half. So, yeah, I mean, that was kind of the thing with the offense, was they did go through some stretches tonight where they just couldn't seem to make shots. But at least, I mean, they're getting shot attempts, and it's a make or miss league if you can get shot attempts. And I think the Lakers still generated. It was kind of like game 1. We said the Lakers, for as poorly as they played, they also just missed a lot of very makeable looks and pretty good looks at the basket. Thought they missed a lot of good looks tonight, but their defense was just miles better tonight than what we saw in game 1. And that's what it's going to come down to with this team, is that the offense, I think at this point, it kind of is what it is. They're going to have some games where they actually they hit these shots. I think the last regular season meeting with the Suns was an example. The Lakers shot very well in that game, hit a lot of threes, and just offensively it was a great game for them. So they're going to still have games like that, but if their defense can be solid and consistent this way, because we know that this team can defend at a high level, and perhaps maybe at a level most if not the rest of the league just can't touch defensively. And if they just play solid on that end of the floor, it'll feed enough into their offense that I have confidence that they'll be able to score enough to beat teams and beat any team 4 out of 7 times. So it always starts on defense for the Lakers, and I'm proud of how they played defensively in this game, given the fact that Anthony Davis had to go basically the whole first half, trying not to pick up a 3rd foul. When your defensive anchor can't really be his normal self on defense, and you still did a pretty damn good job. That's that's a testament to how the group did defensively tonight. And they didn't finish. The one issue I had with the Lakers tonight was not finishing quarters. I thought all three times they basically let the Suns kind of off the hook when they put together good runs to build double-digit leads going into like the last couple minutes of each quarter, and then they let the Suns kind of reel them back in and build some momentum going into the next quarter. They closed the fourth quarter tonight, man, and that was the thing. Is like, if you could give me one quarter for them to actually close out, give me the fourth quarter, and they did it in a big way. So shout out to this team, and I was very critical of Anthony Davis after the last game, and credit to him despite the foul trouble. I don't think it was like an A+ game from Anthony Davis, but I mean, it was a damn good game, and it was a great response to probably a lot of criticism he's had to hear over the last 48 hours or so.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is probably the most promising and optimistic thing about this game is that, like you said, I don't think Anthony Davis was perfect. He very much was not an A+ game. There were long stretches in this game where he did again resort to sort of the jump shooting and settling, and obviously the shot wasn't going for some parts. He obviously had a really big one at the end, but did not look like last year's playoff AD where he was just drilling jumper after jumper. LeBron also, again, not an A+ game. He had big shots when it mattered, but long stretches where he kind of seemed out of the game, wasn't really involved in the offense. And then the role players, obviously you got big games from Drummond and Schroeder. That might not happen every game, but KCP goes scoreless. Kyle Kuzma only has 2 points. That's 2 straight games where he struggled. Alex Caruso, I think, only had, I don't know if he had 2 points, just a dunk at the end, or if he had another bucket.
He had 4 points.
4 points. THT kind of looked lost out there. I kind of don't think he's going to get much playing time the rest of the series. Wesley Matthews missed like the only 3 that I can remember him taking, maybe 2 threes that he missed.
He had one at the end of a quarter that basically he just had to throw it up, and it wasn't even close. But then he missed a regular 3-point attempt. Yeah.
And Marc Gasol contributed, but wasn't perfect either. I think defensively he kind of struggled a little bit, but he did, again, hit some huge shots as well.
Yeah.
But overall, the role players did not really contribute a whole lot to this game, and it's pretty impressive that the bulk of the Lakers scoring came from 4 players, and they were still able to get this win. And now they're going to LA at Staples Center, where theoretically and historically role players tend to play better at home. You can kind of see the impact that the Suns fans had on a lot of their role players. Like Cameron Payne was just loving the fan support after every shot, which was, as annoying as it was also kind of awesome to watch because he was just feeding off that energy. And it's promising to think of, a guy like KCP who struggled in these first 2 games, who LeBron was basically lovingly yelling at during one of those timeouts to shoot the damn ball and stop passing up shots. Now he goes to Staples Center where he's more comfortable. Not going to predict anything, but theoretically that's a game where he can kind of start getting something going. The same thing with a guy like Kuzma or Caruso or Wes or whoever. They should be able to get more contributions from the role players in those 2 games in LA, and you would at least hope and maybe even expect that LeBron and AD kind of continue this upward trajectory from game 1 to game 2 and do the same thing in game 3 and game 4 as they're getting healthier and kind of adjusting to the series and figuring out their spots against a really good Suns team. Again, like, not to take anything away from the Suns, who are a great team and are surely going to adjust to the Lakers and come out and fight really hard again in game 3. But the optimistic viewpoint, I think, is that the Lakers did not play a very, very good game at all. And still, for the majority of this game, they were in control. Weren't able to pull away until the very end, but they were in control of the game pretty much until that stretch in the fourth quarter. So I think there's a lot of promising signs, a lot of positive signs, but obviously it still comes down to executing and continuing to get better in the next few games.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty optimistic about it just because it's more reps for LeBron and AD and Dennis and as many things that they corrected in this game, there's still a lot of room for growth. I mean, outside of four guys, AD had 34, Dennis had 24, LeBron 23, Drummond 15. Outside of that, I mean, you had Gasol score 6, Caruso have 4, Kuzma 2, Taylor Horton Tucker 1. I mean, that was it outside of those four guys. So a lot of room for other guys to make some shots, but KCP went scoreless tonight. But go figure. Looking at the single game plus, the plus minus for tonight, KCP was a game high, I believe, or he was a Laker high with a plus 19 going scoreless, which, some of that is obviously, predicated on kind of what lineups you're playing with and stuff like that. Yeah. But I did think he actually did a pretty damn good job defensively tonight. That's kind of that's a really tough assignment. I was really hoping he would pull the trigger on that three right before the three he passed up that could have been a dagger that he passed to Dennis. And I don't think Dennis was ready for him to pass that over to him. He looked kind of surprised by it. And then LeBron obviously kind of gave him a little talking to after that, which I love to see because that's real leadership. You could tell LeBron, you could see him mouth the words, "I want you to shoot." And that's the thing is like, KCP definitely looked gun shy after missing a couple shots and he passed up some good looks, and the Lakers are going to need him to be himself and just keep shooting, man. The only way you can shoot your way out of a slump or whatever is to continue to take shots. And the only way you're going to make shots is if you keep taking them. You got to keep taking them, and as a shooter, all he needs is to see one go in. And I on that possession, I remember thinking this would be a perfect time to get KCP a look where there's no pressure. It's like if you make it, it's a big lift, and he had it. I mean, he had a clean look, and he passed on it. I was really disappointed because I thought if KCP can get a look here and he can hit it, I think that'll do wonders for his confidence going into the next game. But I think LeBron showing the belief in him after that. I have a feeling we're going to see KCP bounce back in Game 3. Lakers Twitter, we don't need to bully him again, but I'm confident KCP is going to figure it out and he'll bounce back. As long as he keeps playing good defense on Devin Booker. Booker was 7 of 17, I believe, in this game. So, you live with that. And Booker didn't hit a single three in this game. That's huge. If you can keep the Suns from hitting threes, I think overall you'll be fine. So, Lakers got plays where they needed them, but now you go back home. There's going to be some fans in the stands. Hopefully, some of these role players, play a little bit better at home and give the Lakers a little more added support in Game 3, and the Lakers can take control of this series and go up 2-1.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, I think the worst thing that KCP can do is to stop shooting. And it's not just because we want him to get back into form and start hitting some of those threes, but in that starting lineup especially, he is the shooter. Like, he is the singular guy that is the source of spacing for that lineup, other than, a LeBron pull-up threat or an occasional Dennis three. But KCP is the guy that provides that threat. And as soon as he stops shooting, then that means that he doesn't get defended as closely, and that means that there's less space for LeBron and AD and Drummond and Schroeder to operate in the paint. It's just really important to be that threat. It's probably even more important than making the threes, is to just be that threat. Right. Obviously, we want him to start hitting some of these. He missed a lot of open looks that you would expect him to hit. That's going to turn around because he's too good of a shooter to keep missing. But the confidence, like you said, the confidence to keep taking those shots is really, really crucial for the just the flow of the Lakers offense, man. Like it really mucks things up a whole lot when the guy that is 40% shooter or whatever he was this year doesn't take an open three. It completely throws everything off.
Yeah, I would have liked to see the Lakers, when Phoenix had to kind of play the foul game at the end there, get the ball to KCP. I was hoping they could get him some free throws just so he could see one go through the net, and get kind of an easy one. So, but yeah, he definitely contributed in other ways outside of the shooting. So don't want to, bag on KCP or anything because I still have full belief in him. But defensively, I thought he was really good tonight, and he, got after some loose balls and stuff like that. And just got to get the shot making to come around. If he does that, and you get Dennis to play the way he did today, I mean, I think it'll be a wrap at that point. The Lakers will be so tough to beat for this Phoenix Suns team. And that's not to take away from them. I just think if the Lakers get 2 or 3 guys that perform well outside of LeBron and AD, I mean, they're just going to be incredibly difficult for any team to beat. So, it's encouraging that they can get a lot more from the other guys, and they still found a way to win the game and scored 109 points in the process, which was 19 more than the last game. So, encouraging stuff, and ultimately it's a kind of a weight lifted off the shoulders, a little sigh of relief that they're not down 0-2. Hopefully they don't treat it like that and they don't relax coming into Game 3 because this Suns team is probably going to, play with, I don't know, I wouldn't say desperation, but a sense of urgency, knowing that they got to get one in LA now because they certainly don't want to be down 3-1. And, Lakers are going to have to show their championship fortitude and their championship toughness, and, they're going to have to put these guys on the ropes. The Suns aren't going to back into a corner for them, so they're going to have to do it by just taking care of business at home. That's what it boils down to. So, all right, I don't have any more thoughts on that without diving into the chat, so we can dive into the chat comments. I noticed that Debo Sam on YouTube, you were talking a lot of shit after Game 1. I haven't seen you in the chat. Just wondering. I told you to keep that same energy if the Lakers won Game 2. I haven't seen you, so must have gone to bed early.
Oh, that reminds me. I gotta go. There was a dude in our mentions too on Twitter. The day after Game 1, complaining about me sending a tweet during the game about Caruso making some nice defensive plays in a row. It's like, oh, he got torched by Booker. I'm like, okay, but in the moment, he was not getting torched by Booker. He's like, well, wait until the end of the game to tweet. I'm like, well, that kind of defeats the purpose of live tweeting again. So I got to go back and talk about that a little bit too.
Oh, man. All right, let's dive into these chat questions. We got asked, do you guys prefer Denver or Portland in round 2?
Ooh. Wow, that's actually a really tough question. I think I lean towards Portland because I think the Lakers have a better sort of recipe to beat them. I mean, last year they really did not have much trouble with them other than the Game 1, which really mainly was a factor of the Lakers missing a lot of shots. Was the reason they lost that game. Easily could have been a sweep. And they didn't even play well in that Game 1. I'm not really trying to say anything like that, but they could have beaten them with just some shot making. I think that they are very well equipped to slow down Damian Lillard. He's a guy that historically has struggled against double teams, and the Lakers do a damn good job of throwing double teams at those sort of lead guards. They did it all over the last playoffs. They've done it against Booker at times in this series. I think they kind of have that recipe down. The Nuggets, I think, are definitely beatable as well because they don't have a guy in Jamal Murray, so everything has to go through Jokic. But Jokic has just been so incredible this season that if they can avoid playing against them, I would take that. And I think the Lakers have players that can guard him one-on-one and do a good job. Marc Gasol comes to mind, like that game that they beat the Nuggets late in the season. Gasol's defense on him was huge, but he's also he's such a difference maker. And not to say that Dame isn't, but I think that the Lakers just have a better way of slowing Dame down and not getting burned by it than they do Jokic, because if double teaming Jokic is just sort of out of the question because man can pass anywhere on the floor and find an open teammate. So I guess my preference would be the Blazers. It's not by a lot, but I would feel more confident about that series than I would a Nuggets one. we
we got one win against the Suns. We got to get 3 more. So let's get there first. I don't personally really have a preference. I probably agree with Honi. I guess I'd probably lean more towards Portland just because I don't really. I don't know. Jokic is just such a matchup nightmare because it doesn't matter how many bigs you throw at the guy. I mean, he's such a great facilitator. He can score from anywhere on the floor. He can score in a number of ways. Whereas, Lillard is obviously a matchup nightmare as well, but I think the Lakers are probably a little better equipped to handle someone like that as opposed to Jokic, which, I mean, you want to try and put AD on him, but that also takes a lot of energy to put Anthony Davis on him. I think either way, the Lakers would be fine, in all honesty, because Denver doesn't have Jamal Murray. That makes it a little bit easier. And I haven't been a big believer in Portland much of this year. And watching them struggle to beat the Lakers at home in essentially a must-win game near the end of the season there without LeBron, without Dennis. I'm not overly worried about them. Like, to me, this is a tougher challenge than what they will probably see in round 2 if they get there. Because the Suns team is legitimately really good. So, well, let's get there first. Yeah. So, let's see. AD was huge, but Schroeder and Drummond came up big today. Yep, we highlighted that. Those two were fantastic in this game. 26 bench points last game to only 13 this game. Got to fix that. And, 100% agree with that. They just got to get more. Outside of the 4 that played really well today, there just wasn't much scoring anywhere else. So, and we talked about that earlier. There's playing at home is a little more comfortable probably for role players in the playoffs to kind of step into those shots with a little more confidence and get a little rhythm and just have more energy feeding off of your home fans and just playing on your home floor.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's see. Were you surprised by Keefe getting early minutes in the first quarter and that he was playing inside? Do you think that was mainly a product of AD being in foul trouble, or that could be something Vogel looks at more?
I was surprised because after game 1, he didn't play in game 1, and I didn't feel like I didn't feel like he was necessarily missed. I didn't think he was the missing factor that would have led to them winning that game. I kind of thought of it as maybe just bringing some toughness inside. I think that's probably one of Keith's biggest attributes, is that he's a guy that, despite being a little bit smaller than the guys that he usually guards, is going to bring that toughness and isn't going to back down. And I think that's huge. And if he adds, a couple of threes here and there, or some post-up buckets when the offense sputters, then that's great, but that's sort of just an extra. I don't think he had a really good showing in this game, so I wouldn't really expect him to get minutes going forward unless AD is in bigger foul trouble. I don't know if that's the reason why Vogel went to him, because I don't think AD's foul trouble really changed the rotations much in this game. He kind of played with the 2 fouls and then was smart with it going forward. So yeah, I don't really know what the reasoning was for it. Maybe it was just because Marc Gasol was coming in. Maybe it was just a front court partner that he thought would work well with Marc, which makes some sense to me. But given how he played and sort of not really having a huge contribution in this game, I wouldn't expect them to get minutes in game 3. Again, unless there's some sort of extra, injury or foul trouble or whatever.
I thought it was kind of a funky combination. I mean, maybe they were going for just some more additional floor spacing, but it's kind of weird because I think Markieff is better as a perimeter threat big, and with Gasol out there, Gasol is kind of the same way, where he's going to do a lot of damage from the perimeter. I would have liked to seen Montrezl Harrell in Markieff's place, because I think this is just I like this matchup a lot for Trez, and I thought he played really well in game 1, and I would like to see him get some more minutes, but he was kind of the odd man out in a very deep big man rotation. To me, it was just Frank Vogel trying something different and seeing, see maybe I got something here, and got to try it and see what I got, and didn't really get a whole lot out of it, but it was a pretty brief stint, so. I don't know. I think it was just to try something different, see kind of what you got, and if it turned out you had something working there, then great, and if not, it's fairly low risk, so
Yeah.
I thought it was I thought it was fine. I thought it was worth giving a look at least, and it was all right, I guess. So
Yeah, and he's definitely tinkering. Like this is now two straight games where he puts THC in the first half to see if he can give him anything, and then pulls the plug in the second half and doesn't play him at all. So he's definitely kind of looking at what each player might be able to contribute in a certain lineup or against a certain opponent, which makes a lot of sense early in a series.
yeah, he also added LeBron in the post would have been interesting with Markieff spacing the floor in those minutes, along with Mark initiating and spacing the floor. Yeah, I think that would be a pretty interesting look as well. You get maybe LeBron some opportunity to operate out of the post, maybe closer to the basket, while utilizing better floor spacing and having two potential big guys that can also shoot the ball. And with that, I mean that'd be with Phoenix's lack of size. I think something like that could be beneficial. It could be successful because you're basically probably going to have a smaller guy guarding either Markieff Morris or LeBron. And if you have a smaller guy guarding LeBron in the post, then you're most likely going to have to double with the Lakers spacing the floor, and that gets kind of tricky. So I mean that's not a bad idea. I mean the Lakers have options. They certainly have options, and we highlighted that going into the series that I think just their big man rotation and that the amount of bodies they have compared to how many bodies Phoenix has with their front court rotation and just the size difference favors the Lakers pretty heavily, and they can do a number of different things. So yeah, I mean it's one thing that out of probably a number of things that they could definitely try in the series.
Yeah, and to that point, I think I feel like just completely speculatively that a point of emphasis for the Lakers in their film sessions and practice before Game 3 is going to be the fact that they managed to get a lot of, at least quite a few switches for LeBron where he was being guarded by a guy like Devin Booker. And for whatever reason, he didn't really take advantage of those situations.
Yeah, I was getting frustrated by that.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is maybe looking at different mismatches, like AD maybe having a smaller guy on him and trying to get AD going, or maybe it was a factor of the spacing and he didn't really feel comfortable like posting up or whatever. So yeah, whatever that is, I think that is something that they really need to look at because it looked like an area where they might be able to really take advantage of the Suns' defense, and it never really came to fruition other than some jumpers over guys that are smaller than him, which is fine. But LeBron is obviously at his best when he's getting to the basket or forcing double teams and then passing out of them. And it wasn't happening as much as you would have expected given how the Suns were playing it.
Yeah, 100%. So, all right, last thing before we sign off, what's kind of an adjustment you want to see the Lakers make from Game 2 to Game 3?
Make more open three-pointers.
That's what we all want to see.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like I think that is a huge part of it is just hitting those threes. I think they're getting good looks for the most part in their offense. The thing that I just mentioned about LeBron being able to attack those switches is big for me. The other thing I think is we're not seeing quite as much of just a LeBron and AD like pick and roll game as you would expect. Part of that is because AD hasn't really played as a five a whole lot in this series. Mm-hmm. But I would like to see that more because I think that leads to just better looks for AD, because even the plays where he's going to the basket in this game was him really facing up on a post up or whatever and then attacking, which is fine, but it also leads to a lot of those possessions where he gets played for that and then he's settling for jumpers, and right now the jump shot just isn't quite there. Mm-hmm. So I think it's as simple as it sounds. Getting your two best players in a two-man game against two Suns defenders is a good strategy. And it's something that we haven't really seen them do a whole lot of. Even when they do it, it's usually just forcing a switch and then attacking that mismatch rather than going and getting that sort of pick and roll game going and driving into the paint.
Yeah, I would say two things. One is trying to get Anthony Davis the ball either on the move a little bit more or just utilizing those LeBron and AD pick and rolls, because like you said, Honi, good things were coming out of those. Whether you got the switch that you wanted, you got kind of a smaller guy guarding Anthony Davis, or whatever. Good things generally come out of that set, and it's such a simple thing to run with two top 5 players that are both just matchup nightmares for most teams. And so I'd like to see that a little bit more. I'd like to see Anthony Davis get the ball on the move a little bit more and not just throw it to him in the post and then clear out. It's just not good offense. I don't think it's what he's probably comfortable with. I mean, he's a guy, right, that grew up essentially playing a guard spot, and then he went through a big growth spurt late in his childhood and became a big guy. So I think you see a lot of those guard tendencies still in his game. So let's get him the ball on the move a little bit more and kind of in motion and rhythm and not just a stationary, here you go, here's the ball, and now we're going to move out, so just do your thing. It's just some players are built that way, and that's all you got to do. But I think he's more successful when he's catching the ball in motion, or his jumpers. I like his jumpers a lot more when it's on the catch than off the dribble. But just let's get him the ball kind of in motion a little bit more, get him going maybe towards the basket on some cuts, some lobs, stuff like that, and I think they'll be better. The other thing is, I mentioned it once already, but I'd like to see Trez get minutes. I still really believe in this matchup for him, and I think he should get more minutes. I was kind of hoping that he would basically play in Markeef's spot tonight and see what he had in this game, but I get why Vogel tried something different and going with Markeef, but I would like to see Trez get more minutes. I think this is just, I'm going to say it probably 100 times before the series is over. I think this is a good matchup for him, and I think there's a lot of good things he can do out of that dunker spot, and he can, generate extra possessions for the Lakers on the glass and be kind of a nightmare when the Lakers are able to drive. And we saw, I don't know, maybe LeBron was a little more comfortable, I guess, driving to the basket with Trez out there, knowing he could dump it off to Trez, and Trez would probably finish inside or it will get fouled or whatever it is. So I'd like to see him get some more minutes going forward.
Yeah, I think there was one lineup they played, I want to say just in the fourth quarter, where it was LeBron out there, and the only big was Drummond, and the Suns were playing small, and I was like, that's a perfect spot for Trez to be in there instead of Dre. I don't think it's a lot of minutes that Trez can play in this series, but I think there are certain lineups where he makes a whole lot of sense based on how the Suns are playing as well. So I would love that. I would love Vogel sort of optimizing that big man rotation even more. I think all 3 of the centers can truly play in the series. I think Drummond can start. I think Marcus Gasol can be in there when LeBron isn't. And then when LeBron comes back in without AD, then Trez can be in there.
And I feel like the Lakers can maximize Drummond a little bit more by almost shortening his stints a little bit and by utilizing all those bigs that they have in the rotation and keeping him fresh and keeping him, as a high energy, high motor player that can, grab defensive and offensive rebounds, secure the basketball, create extra possessions. He had, a really nice play where he dove to the center of the lane and LeBron hit him with a good bounce pass. I think he can do more of that stuff if he's a little more fresh and you avoid those really long stints for him. Because, there's just some players that are going to be better when they play in shorter bursts. I think we saw a little with Alex Caruso last year where he, people were, clamoring for more minutes, and I think I was one of them, but we kind of understood that it wasn't something he had done in his career. Like he had slowly kind of progressed to a bigger role each season, and you didn't want to just go from like, he played 15 minutes this year to he's playing 33 minutes the next year. You kind of have to ease into it, and I think with Drummond, it's a similar thing where if you shorten the stints a little bit, and maybe he gets more of them, but just kind of more shorter bursts, like maybe 5 minutes or so at a time. I think he can be a little more efficient, and we could see more performances like the one we saw today where he was really, really good for this team. And I think he can be impactful on both ends of the floor. I was just really glad to see him play well, given, the crap he's had to deal with, I think, with all the outside noise of getting blamed for stuff that I didn't think was warranted. So just would like to see the Lakers utilize that big man rotation to take it to their advantage and keep these guys fresh and, just put them in those types of positions to succeed because they don't have to wear these guys out. Anthony Davis is the only guy that should be playing heavy minutes because obviously he's a top 5 player. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. So, Game 3, Thursday, 7:00 p.m. Pacific time on TNT. Obviously, a huge game. Lakers look to go up 2-1 in the series. And, they get 2 days off after that. They don't play until Sunday afternoon for Game 4. So, all I'm asking for the Lakers, adjustments or not, I do want to say before we sign off, credit to Frank Vogel for sticking with Andre Drummond, but also trying different things with his big man rotation and getting Marc Gasol and Markieff Morris in there. We've said it, for a year now that we saw last year's playoff run that Frank Vogel is willing to make tough decisions and, hurt some feelings and make, big lineup changes in the playoffs that he needed. But he stuck with Drummond today, and it paid off in a big way, while also, getting Marc Gasol and Markieff Morris out there and, making some good decisions that ultimately helped the Lakers get out of there with the 1-1 split that they needed and come back home to LA with a chance to win 2 at home and try to go up 3-1. So, all right, well, that is going to do it for us this time. Thank you to everybody that followed along and hopped in the chat with us. Always appreciate you guys. Debo Sam, still waiting for you to hop in the chat. You must be getting some good sleep tonight, but I don't know. Just keep that same energy. That's all I'm going to say. So, yeah, we're going to sign off. Big win for the Lakers. Just a great night for Lakers fans in general. Everything, got all 3 legs of the Triple Crown that we needed tonight. Tonight was just beautiful. So, hopefully we get more nights like this in the postseason as the Lakers, continue their quest to defend their title. But we'll be back Thursday night, so you guys enjoy your Tuesday night and all of your Wednesday, of course, and we'll see you guys hopefully Thursday night. But as always, we'll be doing these post-game shows live on twitch.tv/LakersOutsiders, over on YouTube as well, and on Facebook.com/LakersOutsiders. So if you want to watch and follow along live and hop in the chat, those are the 3 platforms you can follow, subscribe, do whatever you need to do to follow along. And then you can follow Honi on Twitter, as you see on the screen there, at HONIAHM. You can follow me at Twitter, just at Gary Kester. And, you guys have a good night. Take care. We'll see you in about 48 hours after Game 3, and hopefully we're talking about another Laker win. And, so until next time, with Honi Ahmadian, I am Gary Kester, and the Lakers Outsiders, signing off.
Shout out to Ronnie Price.